You may think you're getting a good deal, but I guarantee you you're not. I mean, they seem like a reasonable option to save some money, but you're not going to get a good deal on a foreclosure. In this video, I'm going to tell you why you should never buy a foreclosed property. So let's get into it. So people are looking for affordable options to buy homes, and I understand. Right now we have an affordability issue in this country, so they're looking to foreclosures as a reasonable option. I wouldn't really do that. I'm going to explain the differences between a foreclosure auction and an REO, which is a real estate owned or bank owned property. So listen up, these are the reasons I would never buy a foreclosure. So the first reason is that these homes are distressed homes. It's really sad, but in a home that's been foreclosed on, the previous owners will go in there and they'll damage the home because they're upset because they lost their house. It's really sad, but that does happen, and that could be a big problem. Also, some of them just abandon the home. They leave it vacant for a long time. That alone can cause problems. But if it's in a colder climate and they abandon the home and it's not winterized, you got a real problem with pipes bursting. Then you got mold and water damage in the home. It's very, very distressed. In addition to the fact that if it is vacant, you could possibly have vandalism in the home or maybe even squatters. The next reason I would never buy a foreclosed home is that, you can't get in there to inspect the home. That's a big one. You don't know what you're getting into. On foreclosure auctions, a lot of times they won't even allow you to get in the house, or they might not even allow you to step on the property. You're going to have to do a drive-by to figure out if this is a good house. That's huge. You really need to know what the problems are in that house before you make an offer. Not before you make an offer, but before you finalize that sale. In most sales, you can do that, not in a foreclosure auction. I mean, you think you're getting a really good deal, but you are not if you can't inspect it. All of these reasons. But anyway, sometimes in a foreclosure auction, the homeowners still live there and there's a tenant in the house. So now, after you buy the house, you got to deal with evicting somebody who's living there, maybe a tenant who's obviously, maybe they're not even paying rent. That's maybe why there's a foreclosure. Anyway, regardless of the reason, you do not want to have the problem of trying to evict somebody from a house that you just bought. So on a bank-owned property, you can go ahead and inspect the home a lot of times, but it's as is. They are not going to do anything about any damage to the home or potential big problems on the home. Go ahead, inspect it, but we're not going to do anything. That is a big one. Like I said before, I want to inspect the property, and if I see a huge problem, I want to be able to fix it. Not on a foreclosure. These homes are, as is, and you're buying it sometimes sight unseen. And on a bank-owned property, you can go check it out, know what you're getting into, but you can't do anything about it. No price reductions, no nothing. So the next reason I would never buy a foreclosure is that in an auction sale, you're taking on the previous owner's debt. Yeah. So there could be property liens, contractor liens, HOA liens. That is all going to come along with the property. And, unless you can do a property search before you go to that auction, go to the courthouse and research that property, then you're not going to know what is happening with that property. Now, with a bank-owned property, the bank is going to take care of those kind of things. So it is a safer option if you just are hell-bent on buying a foreclosure. If you're buying in an auction and you think you're getting a great deal, there's some really big red flags. One of them is, the tax liens and all that stuff are going to come with it. So you're taking on somebody else's debt. Wow, not a good deal. Now, another reason is you are going to have a hard time financing this property. It's going to be hard to get a loan for this property. So on an auction site, auction home, they're going to either require only cash, or you could possibly, it's a little bit harder, but you could possibly get an FHA 203K loan. Now, an FHA 203K loan it's going to be insured by the government because it says FHA, but it will cover the cost of the house and also the cost of making the repairs. On a bank-owned property, they will accept a conventional loan. You can't really get an FHA or a VA loan if you're going to try to buy one of these properties because, FHA and VA loans, they are going to require an inspection and they were going to require certain safety issues be fixed and things that are going to be fixed on the house that are, big high risks for the future. And those things that are not going to be fixed. The bank is not going to fix them. So if you cannot do a conventional loan, and if you're, all you can do is an FHA or a VA loan, sorry to say, but you cannot get into a foreclosure property. So if you're looking for, foreclosures, or maybe you're just looking to buy a regular home, that is not in a foreclosure, give me a call. I would love to help. I work here in the Des Moines area, and I can help you find a great house, great community that doesn't have all these problems. Or if you're looking in another state, maybe you found my video and you're looking in another state, I got you covered on that too. Give me a call, get in contact with me. My contact information's in the description. I can help you find a great local agent where you are. Another reason why I'd never buy a foreclosure is because in an auction situation, you are going to be bidding against investors. The investors are going to want to come in. They want these homes because they're in bad shape and they could possibly get it for a lower price. Not likely. So they come in, make the offers, and you're bidding against them. Professional guys who have done this many a times. So more than likely, you're not going to be able to lowball and come in and get, a great price on this house. Does it happen? Maybe. I've not seen it. Auction sites, they're not going to take a house under the value that it is. And if they did, then you're probably going to be going up against some people who are wanting to flip it and, fix it up and sell it for a much higher price. So that's on an auction deal. On a bank-owned deal, the situation there is somebody wasn't able to pay their mortgage. So the bank has got this property and they want their money, the money that they loaned out for this property, and they're not going to accept any less. They're going to more than likely put it on the market for a market value. A lot of people think they can go in and say, well, this is a foreclosure, I'll lowball. It doesn't usually work. Most of the time, they're going to end up at market value. And why would you buy a foreclosed house that you can't inspect and all the problems that I talked about, possible problems or likely problems? If you're going to buy at market value, go ahead and get a house that's on the market where you can inspect it, fix the problems, or have the seller, give you credit or fix those problems. Why would you end up with all these problems if you're going to end up paying market value anyway? So another reason is, if you can't handle high stress situations, I wouldn't go this route. When you're buying an auction situation, let's say you go to an auction and everything is going great and you end up winning the bid. They want 10% right now. A lot of times they'll ask for that cash, right there. You got to write a check or bring cash or whatever it is. And in addition to that, they're going to want to close right away, 30 days minimum. You're in a stress situation. You got to kind of hurry up, get everything in order. And if you're not used to that, if that's not, you don't deal with stress very well, that's going to be very tough. Now, bank-owned properties are a little different. So you can get a conventional loan, but they're not going to wait around. They want this property closed and they want to get it done. They want their money quick. So like a 30-day close is all you can get. I've heard stories where in situations like this, bank-owned property, you got a conventional loan and they set the date, and what happens if you can't make it or you just want to postpone a little bit? They don't allow it. I've heard stories of people, banks charging a daily fee if you can't make that closing date. That can be stressful. Think of the reasons that if somebody came to you and said, okay, we're all ready and this is the date, and you say, well, I got to work that day or I'm out of town, I cannot do it. And now they're charging you $250 a day or whatever the fee is. It can be stressful. All right, so who shouldn't be buying foreclosed homes or looking at foreclosed homes as an option? First-time home buyers should not be looking at this possibility. If you're the first-time home buyer and you want to look at a foreclosure, you want this great deal, I understand, but it's not a great option for all the reasons I talked about. But in addition to that, let's say you get this deal and maybe you're at your limit as far as money, and now you don't have money to fix the property and all that. It's just not a good idea. First-time home buyers really should not be looking at foreclosures. Now, the other thing is, if the only loan you can get is a government-backed loan like FHA or VA, you're not going to be able to get a mortgage on this property because of what I said before. Because of the appraisal process and the requirements for these government-backed loans, you're not going to be able to repair the property good enough for them to approve a government-backed loan. It's just not a good idea. Those two people for sure, if you have a hard time getting a mortgage or if you're a first-time home buyer, don't look at foreclosures. It's just not it more than likely won't work out. Have I heard about, success stories? Yes, it does happen. It hasn't happened in my situation. I have never had a client buy one of those. I've had a couple that tried and it fell through every time. Anyway, those are the reasons I would never buy a foreclosed home. And a lot of times when somebody comes to me, I try to discourage them unless they have, cash and all this other stuff that we talk about. And if they do, I help them try to get it. Like I said, I've helped a couple try to get one and I never have been successful. Anyway, those are the reasons. I wouldn't do it if I were you. And look, like I said, if you are thinking about buying in the Des Moines area, you're looking for homes, give me a call. I'd love to help you find what you're looking for. There's some great affordable options here in the Des Moines area, or maybe you're just looking to, upgrade and look for your next house. Give me a call. I'd love to help. If you're looking in another state, you happened upon my video, I can help you there too. Give me a call. I'll find a great agent for you right in your area.